Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has now been accused of not disclosing a yacht trip to Russia and a private helicopter flight to a palace in Vladimir Putin's hometown. Oh, this sounds like such a nice vacation for a wealthy elite to take. That's among many other gifts, vacations, loans that hadn't been previously disclosed. And I know what you're thinking. When I know this story, ProPublica talked about, no, this is more trips, more palaces, more. That's my best Clarence Thomas impersonation. I don't know what he sounds like. He doesn't talk much. But anyway, buried on page 14 of a letter that two Democratic senators sent to AG Merrick Garland on Tuesday, where they urged Garland to appoint a special counsel to probe Clarence Thomas, we talked about that yesterday on the show, was an astonishing list of dozens of, quote, likely undisclosed gifts and income from Harlan Crow, Harlan Crow's affiliated companies, and, quote, other donors. So that includes a loan of more than $267,000 provided by Anthony Welters. That's the RV loan. The yacht trip to Russia from the Baltics. The helicopter ride to Yusupov Palace in St. Petersburg. Sounds delightful. ProPublica first reported last year on the existence of extensive undisclosed gifts and lavish trips from Crow, and we just keep on finding out about more. And it's so weird that we keep on finding out about more, because when they raised the issue of his corruption, he did disclose some. I guess, the trip to the Russian palace just, slipped his mind. Maybe he didn't take enough photos, so he didn't remember that he'd gone on a yacht trip to Russia and visited a Russian palace.
The video will continue in just a moment, but first I have a message for you. TYT needs your help. Membership is vital to survival, so please go to tyt.com/team and become a member today.
We can bring up this list. There's trips, and there's tuition for his grandnephew, and there's free lodging, and there's real estate transactions, and there's home renovations, and there's corruption, and there's corruption, and there's corruption, and there's corruption, and it keeps piling up to the tune of millions of dollars, and it should be unacceptable. But as of right now, maybe it's not. What do you think, JR?
There needs to be more people willing to ask these questions. I understand that finally, because I've been talking about it for a while, just in bits and pieces, because I didn't think everyone think I was crazy. The Project 2025 thing is now one of the main things getting talked about, right? Ever since the debate, especially. At one point, is someone going to go on Meet the Press? Any of these folks who don't believe in having a Supreme Court that's above corruption, and ask them, just hit them with this list. Any congressperson, senator, governor, I don't care who they are. Ask them. So are you in favor of this level of undisclosed gifts and trips and lodging and food and all this just for one Supreme Court justice member and a couple of others as well? Are you, why? No, don't ask them, are you? Why are you okay with this? Because you haven't done anything else about it. Why would you not sign on to this anti-corruption process that many of these folks are putting forward to make sure this happens? Because I remember before we had to go for this further list, there was Democrats in the House that were saying, yo, you mentioned the ProPublica article. Maybe we should put forward some kind of things where we are actually checking these Supreme Court justices rather than just trusting that they're gonna do all right. We're seeing right now that they're not doing all right. That's already been blown through. But people wanna oppose that. Why do you want to oppose it? It would still apply to Justice Sonia Sotomayor. It would also apply to every other one of the ones that you actually dislike. They have to follow it as well. So what's the downside? Is you protecting your guys that you think are the ones gonna follow up and actually make sure that your policies come through or that the immunity rulings come down in your favor? It's gotta be made obvious by asking them the question rather than assuming that that's just where they are. We're gonna see it later. Ask them the question. Why do you support corruption? Because there's no other way to put it. It's corruption.
Yeah, I think we need to get a couple of billionaires on the line to be like, okay, this is cool. Okay, we're gonna just give millions of dollars to the libs or whatever. Now they're not the majority. Maybe that doesn't matter that much, but you could totally do it. I would say if I'm trying to get in the mind of a right winger as to why they really wouldn't mind that, they might say that they mind that, but why they wouldn't really mind that is they believe that the lib justices will not be as corrupt, but not as corrupt. That they will be given these gifts by the same people corrupting the conservatives, so they honestly don't mind. And 3, that they know that it just all comes down to the majority is conservative, they have the numbers, so they're not worried about it. And also that they really just don't care about corruption at all. They just want more of it themselves. But anyway, I'm glad that we're having the conversation. I'm glad the AOC is talking about it, and then at least some Democrats get that this is something we should be focusing on in an election that could determine control of the Supreme Court for potentially decades to come. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.